Another suitcase full of diapers, tantrums, and responsibilities that weren't mine. They thought I was coming along to help again. When I finally said no, they laughed it off, because they were sure I'd cave like always. But at the airport, while they were busy boarding with my sister's twin babies, I quietly disappeared. By the next morning, my phone showed 70 missed calls and 35 angry messages saying I ruined everything. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I replied with just 3 words, and that's when everything changed. When my sister asked me about the trip, my sister didn't even wait for my answer. She concluded saying, "You're good with the twins for this trip." Already lifting her glass and turning away. My parents laughed as she made fun of me. I felt the familiar weight before I felt the sound. 2 small bodies climbing into my lap, sticky hands grabbing at my sleeves, a cup tipping sideways. Apple juice splashed down my dress, cold against my skin. Laughter erupted around the table. Someone joked about how natural I was with kids. Someone else said, "Amanda's basically their second mom." No one looked at my face. I reached for napkins, for a towel, for anything to clean up a mess I hadn't made. My sister Lauren was already mid-conversation again, laughing like nothing had happened. My parents smiled proudly, like the whole scene was proof of something good. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I went to my room and started packing. They assumed I'd be on the family trip the following week. They always assumed I'd be there, watching, helping, adjusting. They had no idea I'd already made other plans. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me something. Where are you listening from? Because if you've ever been the one everyone leans on without asking how heavy it gets, you'll understand this story. And when it's over, tell me what you would have done. I used to believe the quiet in our house meant calm. It didn't. It meant attention was being given somewhere else. The walls told the story clearly enough. Framed photos followed the hallway like milestones. Lauren's soccer trophies, Lauren's prom, Lauren's engagement announcement blown up and centered. My presence existed mostly in the background, half-cropped, blinking mid-smile. When Lauren outgrew clothes, they became mine. When she outgrew mistakes, they became mine too. Be practical, my mom would say when I asked why Lauren got new things and I didn't. When I asked why my art projects never stayed on the fridge as long as hers did, Dad said, "We can't keep everything." I learned early not to expect space. At 16, I won a regional essay contest. The envelope arrived thick and official, my name printed cleanly on the front. I left it on the kitchen counter, heart racing, while Mom cooked dinner. "That's nice, honey," she said without turning around. Then the phone rang. Lauren was calling, excited about a promotion interview. By the time the call ended, my envelope was buried under grocery coupons and unopened mail. It stayed there for days. In college, I worked evenings at a bookstore and weekends at a cafe. Most Saturdays, my phone lit up with Lauren's name. "Can you watch the twins for a couple hours?" The hours always stretched. Their toys filled my apartment. Their laughter echoed while I tried to study. When I mentioned exams, Lauren sighed. "You're lucky," she said. "You don't have real responsibilities yet." Once, I asked my parents for help with tuition. Dad folded his newspaper slower than usual. "We're still paying off Lauren's wedding," he said. The edge of the page shook slightly. He knew. He just didn't stop. It wasn't one moment that broke me. It was a lifetime of being the easiest solution. The dinner that changed everything was supposed to be for my birthday. The cake arrived already decorated, bright frosting, cartoon figures, 2 names written across the top that weren't mine. "We thought it'd be fun to celebrate everyone together," Mom said quickly, like explaining something obvious. The candles were shaped like animals. The twins clapped. Everyone laughed. After dessert, Dad cleared his throat and slid an envelope toward me. "We booked a family trip," he said proudly. "Next week. Everything's paid for." Lauren smiled, relieved. "You'll help with the boys," Mom added. so Lauren can finally relax. Something inside me went quiet. I'm not going, I said. The room froze. Lauren blinked. What? I'm not going. Mom's voice sharpened. Don't start. I'm not starting anything, I said, placing my fork down carefully. I'm just saying no. Dad muttered something about gratitude. Lauren whispered. You're unbelievable. I stood slowly. You've had my time, my weekends, my patience. You can have the trip too. Just not me. Their voices tangled behind me as I walked out. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like rejection. It felt like room. That night, I opened my laptop. Flights. Dates. Numbers. A blank search bar blinked like a dare. I didn't slam doors. I didn't announce anything. I typed. I booked. I confirmed. The confirmation email landed softly, like proof of a secret. After that, every sound in the house felt louder. Mom planning. Lauren laughing on the phone. The twins being promised my help. I stopped correcting them. During lunch breaks, I printed receipts and folded them neatly into a folder. Each page felt like a brick in a wall they couldn't cross. A week before the trip, I bought a suitcase. Business or pleasure? The cashier asked. Neither, I said. She laughed. The suitcase rolled silently across the floor. That mattered to me. 2 nights before departure, I stood in the hallway staring at the photos. Lauren's smile stared back. I turned one frame face down. The sound was small. Final. I typed a message and saved it. I won't be there. Enjoy your trip. I didn't send it. Just knowing it existed slowed my breathing. The night before, the house buzzed with excitement. Suitcases stacked. Checklists repeated. The twins ran wild. My own suitcase waited in my trunk. At midnight, I checked my flight one last time. Then I slept deeper than I had in years. Morning arrived without ceremony. No dramatic confrontation. No slammed doors. No final speech. Just the soft hum of the coffee machine and the sound of my parents' footsteps crossing the hallway, busy with checklists and luggage and urgency that had nothing to do with me. I moved quietly, almost reverently, like a guest in a house that had already let me go. Lauren's voice floated from the kitchen, sharp and rushed, reminding everyone about passports and boarding times. The twins ran past my door twice, shrieking with excitement, their tiny sneakers slapping against the floor. I stayed seated on my bed, fully dressed, hands folded in my lap, listening. 4 years, I had been the invisible hinge holding moments like this together. Today, I was just another closed door. Mom knocked once, already halfway turned away. Don't forget sunscreen, she said. I nodded. She didn't notice my backpack by the door. She didn't notice the absence of anxiety on my face. She didn't notice anything different at all. That, more than anything, confirmed I was doing the right thing. I'll meet you there, I said casually as I stepped into the hallway. Dad smiled distractedly. Lauren barely looked up. They were counting heads, counting bags, counting responsibilities. They counted me without checking. Outside, the morning air was cool and pale. I walked to my car slowly, heart steady, hands not shaking the way I thought they would. The suitcase was already in the trunk, hidden beneath a blanket like something precious. As I pulled away, the house shrank in my rearview mirror. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was abandoning anything. I felt like I was returning something that had never been mine to carry. The airport buzzed with familiar chaos. Families juggling strollers. Couples arguing quietly. Solo travelers staring at their phones like shields. I parked at a different terminal, one my family never used. The small act felt symbolic, a clean break, even in logistics. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and disinfectant. I checked my bag without hesitation. The agent smiled. Have a good trip. I will, I said. And I meant it. I found my gate and sat near the window, watching planes taxi and lift, one after another. Each one felt like a choice being honored. No one questioned why I was alone. No one asked who I was waiting for. That anonymity felt like oxygen. When my boarding group was announced, I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. The message was still there. The one I'd typed days ago and saved like a secret weapon I never planned to brandish. I read it once more. I won't be there. Enjoy your trip. 3 sentences. Final. I hit send. Then I powered my phone completely off and dropped it into my bag. No dramatic pause. No second thoughts. Just the soft click of finality. As I stepped onto the plane, the weight I'd carried for years slipped off my shoulders without a sound. The flight was smooth. I stared out the window as the ground fell away, the city shrinking into geometry and light. Somewhere across the airport, my family was probably rushing toward their gate, calling my name for the first time that morning. Too late. I closed my eyes and slept. Not the restless kind of sleep I was used to, half alert for cries or phone calls or obligations. This was deep, undisturbed, earned. When the plane landed, I turned my phone back on. It vibrated instantly. Then again. And again. Missed calls stacked faster than I could count. Text messages appeared in rapid bursts, one accusation chasing the next. Where are you? We're at the gate. Answer your phone right now. Your sister is crying. This is unbelievably selfish. I didn't open them. I stood slowly, letting the aisle clear, breathing evenly as I stepped off the plane. My legs felt steady. My chest felt light. By the time I reached baggage claim, the phone buzzed again. A voicemail notification. Then another. Then another. One message preview slipped through. You ruined our vacation. I locked the phone and slipped it back into my bag. At the carousel, my gray suitcase appeared like a punctuation mark. Solid, quiet, undeniable. I pulled it free and rolled it toward the exit. Outside, the air was warm and heavy with salt. Palm trees swayed lazily. The smell of sunscreen and ocean drifted past me. The world had continued without my family's approval. Imagine that. The hotel lobby was calm and bright. A couple checked in ahead of me, laughing softly. The clerk smiled as I handed over my ID. One guest, he asked. Yes, I said. The word felt powerful. In my room, I placed my suitcase by the wall and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence wasn't empty. It was spacious. My phone vibrated again. I turned it face down. For a moment, guilt surfaced the way it always did. Sharp, automatic, conditioned. I imagined the twins crying, Lauren pacing, Mom wringing her hands, Dad sighing heavily like the weight of responsibility had finally landed somewhere inconvenient. They would say I betrayed them. They would say I embarrassed them. They would say I chose myself over family. They weren't wrong. I lay back and stared at the ceiling fan as it turned slowly, methodically, without caring who approved of its rhythm. That night, I slept with the balcony door open, the sound of waves filling the room like reassurance. I woke before sunrise. The sky was painted in soft pastels, the horizon barely glowing. I walked barefoot to the shoreline, the sand cool beneath my feet. The ocean breathed in slow, patient cycles. I stood there, letting the water wash over my ankles, thinking about every time I'd been asked to just help for a bit. Every time I'd said yes without being asked if I could. Every time my silence had been mistaken for consent. When I checked my phone, the battery was already low. Dozens of new messages waited. You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you. This is not how family behaves. We needed you. Needed. Not missed. Not loved. Needed. I held down the message thread until it shook, then tapped delete. The sound was soft. Definitive. I didn't reply. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. That was the plan all along. The rest of the day unfolded gently. I wandered through an open-air market, listening to strangers barter and laugh. I bought fruit from a vendor who smiled like we'd known each other for years. I sat on a bench and watched children chase birds without anyone telling me to intervene. No one here knew my history. No one here expected anything from me. I bought a small seashell pendant from a stand near the pier. Its surface was smooth and cool in my palm, imperfect and complete. I thought about the juice spilled on my dress at that dinner table back home. How I'd wiped it away without complaint. How some stains fade once you stop scrubbing. That evening, I sat on the balcony with my notebook and wrote slowly, deliberately. Freedom doesn't arrive with applause. It arrives when you stop asking permission. The words felt like a vow. When I returned home days later, I didn't drive to my parents' house. I drove straight to my apartment. The space greeted me quietly, sunlight spilling across the floor. No framed memories. No noise. No roles waiting to be filled. I unpacked one item at a time. Folded clothes. Placed the shell pendant on my desk. Boiled water for tea. No calls came. Maybe they were still angry. Maybe they were still shocked. Or maybe they were finally learning what it meant to function without me. The next morning, I woke before dawn. The city outside was still asleep. I sat at my desk, window open, cool air brushing my skin. My phone lay beside the seashell, dark and silent. For the first time in my life, no one needed anything from me. That emptiness didn't feel hollow. It felt clean. I sipped my tea slowly, watching the light change. For years, I believed duty was love. I believed silence was peace. I was wrong. Real peace doesn't require self-erasure. It doesn't demand exhaustion as proof of loyalty. It doesn't punish you for choosing yourself. Maybe my family will rewrite the story. Maybe they'll say I abandoned them. Let them. The truth is simpler. I stopped showing up where I was invisible. And the silence that followed wasn't lonely. It was freedom. If you were in my place, what would you have done? And would you have been brave enough to leave quietly too? Moral lessons. This story reminds us that boundaries are not punishments, distance is not betrayal, and saying no does not make you selfish, it makes you honest. If you've been taken for granted, you are allowed to step away, rest, and rebuild without explaining yourself to anyone who benefited from your exhaustion. True peace begins the moment you stop showing up where you're unseen and start choosing a life that lets you breathe. When love is one-sided, silence turns into self-erasure, and peace becomes a debt you're forced to pay alone.